Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
Subscribe to this YouTube channel and give this video a like. We appreciate it.
Also, check out our podcast down below in the description. Do it now.
All right, John. We like the 49ers first round for two reasons. One, we like the players they drafted. Two, maybe even more so than the players, is we like how they had to do it. They made history, Middlecoff. Did you realize this? Pelissero tweeted when the Niners traded back from 13 to 14, they became only the, well, I guess it was the second time anyone's done it in 4 years. They were the only other team to do it. And I remember we did our live draft show. You loved this when it happened. It just felt very chess master. Bobby Fischer, chess reference.
Isn't it crazy that when the farther you get in the first round, even though they're first round picks, you expect every trade to come along with a second, at minimum a third. But once you get to like the early teens, the Niners really just got a fourth round pick to do the deal. When they did it from 2 to 3, it was like, you just got a second, a third, and a next year's third for that? It was nuts. The Kinlaw thing, though, was so big because one thing was clear. He was one of their six, the guys that they felt good about taking at 13. They would have taken him at 13, just like hopefully this turns out different. They would have taken Solomon Thomas at 2, but they got a pick. And why it was so big for the Niners, to me, if they had a second, a third, and a fourth round pick, I think we would make fun of them a little, like they were getting cute, which is fine. I mean, I can't ever bang on you for getting a fourth round pick, but they needed this pick, guy. They wanted to keep Kinlaw once they knew Tampa Bay would not take Kinlaw. To get that fourth round pick turns out an hour later in the draft to be essential for them getting a wide receiver that I don't know if they would have had the ammo, just because unlike the majority of teams in the league, they did not have a pick in the second, the third, or the fourth round.
Right. No, it was great. Because at the time of the Kinlaw deal, we didn't quite know. That fourth round pick didn't mean a lot to us, right, in that moment. But clearly it meant a lot to them. And I think part of what makes this first round unique is we thought, and by the way, if you haven't seen our video that we did on Brandon Aiyuk, we go deep on him, so you can go watch that video too. A lot of film, fun talk. But we thought, if anything, they would trade back with both picks. I don't think we expected them to trade back a spot with the first pick and then trade up with the second pick. How rare is it for a team to have two first-round picks, to make two trades, but still make two first-round picks? Like, it's one thing if you use both the picks to move up, if you use one of the picks and then you trade into the second round with the other. But they had two firsts. They traded both firsts, and they still picked two players in the first round.
Well, I think going into it's pretty nuts. Going into the draft, I think most of us that follow the league, cover the league, talk about the league, thought it was going to be crazy. Most people just on social media were expecting it to be crazy. And I think a lot of people on television, like the Schefters and everyone, thought it was going to be crazy. Well, Guy, we had chalk in terms of no one moved from the first pick, which was Burrow, all the way to the Raiders, where it's like nothing's really happening. And even on that pick for the Niners, it got down, I think, like close to 2 or 1 minute. We're like, are the Niners just going to take a pick here? It was not necessarily boring, but I just think everyone expected mayhem. And then up until the Niners, you realize, well, maybe it's actually a little harder to do some crazy trades over quarantine. And then a trade finally happens. You're like, oh, what are they doing? They moved back one spot, but they still immediately, once they said the name and they said Kinlaw, I think most people were like, that's a great deal because clearly they would have taken Kinlaw at 13.
Yeah. We said we thought they should take him or C.J. Henderson. Obviously, Henderson wasn't there. They went with Kinlaw. It's significant, too, because this is the pick. Well, I mean, it was the pick at 13 that they got for DeForest Buckner. So this guy's being...
Doesn't it go back also to before the draft? They were like 13s for sale, 13s for sale, and then once the last probably really elite tackle viewed in this draft fell to that spot, they had some leverage even over Tampa Bay where they go, hey, guys, we got maybe Miami will come up and get the tackle. Who knows? Like, we got other teams that are willing to trade with us, almost like we did you a favor.
And you're right. Miami ended up taking a tackle later in Dexter Jackson. So this guy, not only have we talked about him a while, I think it's pretty impressive. you're asking somebody not just to come in and play as a first rounder. Now, the benefit for Kinlaw, obviously, is that he's playing with the defense that he's not going to be the focal point on, but he's taken over in that space that is left by DeForest Buckner. I watched him talk at the Senior Bowl, John. I know you've seen him talk too. And you're telling me one of the things he said about being yelled at, but he's been through a lot. He's really impressive, and he doesn't strike me as a guy that will feel too much pressure. I think the stuff we talk about taking over for DeForest Buckner is going to be more external than it is internal. His talk at the Senior Bowl was mostly about just battling homelessness growing up initially in Washington, D.C., and how poor they were and everything he's been through and getting to college. And, I mean, it's just really impressive guy. So what do you say about the D-line coach?
Someone asked him if he's going to be able to handle getting yelled at, and he said, "Have you heard of Will Muschamp?" The other thing, when you play at South Carolina, which the last couple years has been, a mid-tier to lower-tier SEC school, you still play every year. Georgia, Florida, South Carolina. They played Alabama. Depending on how the schedule breaks up, you play LSU. Like, you play the Texas A&M. You play the cream of the crop. And he was the second best player in the SEC beside Derek Brown. And last time I checked, Derek Brown went 7.
So the two best defensive linemen.
The best defensive linemen. Because this year, the Chase Young, the Nick Bosa, that guy, the Clowney over, they didn't have an edge rusher that was going to go really high. I guess Chason ended up going to the Jaguars at, what was that, pick 19 or 20? It would have been 18, maybe, whatever, at the end of the late teens. So the two best defensive linemen were tackles, and one went 7 and one went 14, which feels right in the SEC. Like, they produce elite, because who looks like this human guy? DeForest Buckner. And look at what DeForest Buckner. DeForest not quite as jacked, but DeForest is longer. DeForest is huge. Body type's a little different. I mean, this guy looks like he could wrestle for Vince McMahon.
Thank God he doesn't have to. He has a job in the NFL.
Pays a lot of money.
All right, I said Dexter Jackson, by the way. Correction, Austin Jackson, the offensive tackle the Dolphins took. Dexter Jackson was a Buck once upon a time. Good player. Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP.
All right. Okay, so that was the first part, right? That's the first trade and the first player. But then the 4th round pick comes into play, and this is really significant. Matt Barrows reported that, or I guess the 49ers said this, that the reason they had to trade from 31 to 25 was because they felt like the Dolphins were going to take Brandon Aiyuk at 26. So they go up, they trade with Minnesota. After they do that deal and they take Aiyuk, Miami, who's at 26, the next spot, trades back with Green Bay. You told me Seattle, John Schneider said he at 27 was prepared to trade back with Green Bay, but once they could move up a spot closer, they went and did the deal with Miami. So this is the second part. It's really a 3-parter. You do the trade, you get the 4th, but then you have to use that 4th properly, right? To have the intel to jump back ahead of Miami. How'd they know that?
Well, they clearly have a lot of good intel because the first trade, the second trade, like they know who wants who and where. And what do I say all the time? The draft is not necessarily about, we got to get this guy. It's about knowing the value. It's about knowing what other teams, the way they value the players, so you can manipulate this thing. This separates the meatheads from the smart guys. And I'm talking, they all know football. But there is Belichick last night traded while the team ahead of him was on the clock. Like Belichick's playing chess. And the Niners, their moves. Now, again, I'm not saying they're playing chess. They always hit the right players, but they always know the value. They always exhaust every resource if the value isn't there to move back or forward. But here's the key, guy. I thought they needed to get a corner because the draft or because the team, the reason they lost the Super Bowl is the guy on the opposite end of Richard Sherman is an undrafted free agent at the end of the day. But their mindset is we can make up for DBs by constantly having the best defensive line in the league. So once they take Kinlaw, you go, well, I'm not going to take a corner at 31. And if I don't take a wide receiver at 31 or whatever I do with 31, I don't have a pick until the 4th round. That was when they still had that 4th round pick. I think it was 117. So that's asking a lot of pick 117 to immediately be an impact player for you on a team that's going to try to win the Super Bowl. So I think they looked at it like, listen, we helped out our defense. Emmanuel Mosley, yeah, Middlecoff might think he's flawed, and he is a little bit, but he still started for a team that went to the Super Bowl. We still got Richard Sherman. We re-signed Jimmy Ward. We still got Kwaski Tart. Our defensive line is now good. We do need more. Like, our second receiver right now is Kendrick Bourne, who, again, you and I like as like a third, fourth, and they got aggressive. They got a guy they like. They did it last year, and it turns out Deebo Samuel, as a rookie, had 57 catches and led the team for all led their wide receivers in catches by a wide margin. I mean, if it wasn't for the Emmanuel Sanders trade, no one would have been close. So I trust their understanding of what they look for in wide receivers. Just look at last year, guy. They targeted 2 wide receivers over a 6-month span. They draft Deebo, perfect fit. Midseason trade, Emmanuel Sanders, perfect fit. So this is where Kyle Shanahan, he values defensive line. And you'd say right now he's 1 for 2, right? Nailed Bosa, missed on Solomon Thomas. And you'd say the way Bosa looks, Solomon's a big whiff, but if Bosa's an all-time great, I think you'll forget about it. If Kinlaw can just be 85, 90% of Buckner, you're in pretty good shape. And then if Aiyuk, one thing Kyle shows you is like, give me receivers, I'll make it happen. And unlike Pettis, who was a softer, just turns out not the type guy Kyle does not like. Like Kendrick Bourne lapped him. Why? Kendrick Bourne drops balls, but he's physical. He's tough. Deebo is the high end of that. Emmanuel Sanders comes right in, championship mindset. This Aiyuk just plays like a tough guy. I think it's a perfect fit for this offense.
Yep. And for more on why we love that video, go watch the Aiyuk video. I think to your point on the intel, if I could use like very rudimentary childlike logic, John, I'd say maybe there's a value to being liked and being good. Now, part of being liked might be Belichick respected, picks up the phone and calls Shanahan. This is a year, we've talked about this, where the scouts weren't hanging out. Recon was going to be a little bit tougher. So this is a good football team. Presumably John Lynch, one of his skills, Bob Myers-esque. Now, Bob Myers was an agent. John Lynch was not an agent. But a likable guy, easy to talk to. So he has relationships throughout the college game. And obviously, I think, and Parag Marathe obviously has done a lot of deals with agents over the years. Adam Peters, very connected. You worked with Adam when you were in the college game before you went to the NFL. Their ability to get information, right? It makes you wonder, do agents want their players there? Why would you not? If you're Brandon Aiyuk's agent, why would you not want him in San Francisco? Did he let them know? Did he let them know Miami likes our guy, but I'd rather him be with you guys?
Well, if you were Aiyuk's agent and you knew that Dolphins were like, hey, listen, we're going to take this guy. We're going to take your guy. And you knew Kyle Shanahan loved him. Wouldn't you get on? Where would you want your guy to end up? In Miami or with Kyle Shanahan? Miami, year one, fired their offensive coordinator. Josh Rosen, who feels like he's closer to out of the league, career just ended in Miami. And I'm not saying they're not doing some good things, but they just draft Tua, which is a pretty big question mark. Is Tua even going to play this year? Are you going to be playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick? I think you get on the phone, and the Niners wouldn't admit this because you don't want to hurt the agent's reputation in the league. I would be shocked if they didn't get some intel. Like, can you guys, Miami's going to, if you want him, you got to take him now.
Help the guy's rep. Good agent.
Yeah, big time.
Now, his player is is a high tax state instead of a low tax state, but his cut's the same.
But as you and I know, you pay the agent pre-tax.
That's right. And here's the other thing. There's more money to be made if you're good, if you're productive. You can make more money in the long run. You're on a good football team. You catch a lot of footballs. So
1,000,000%.
Now, that's us just spitballing a little bit, but the fact is they found a way in a year where it was going to be hard to do recon to do very good recon, clearly. I can't wait for the next Niner one-spot trade back, John. Maybe we're doing this we're doing this video before the second round, so maybe they do it in the 7th.
Well, they don't have a pick for 3 years.
Maybe they do it in the 7th. All right, tell us what you think of this video, what you thought of the Niners first round, and again, give this thing a thumbs up.